Commander Jake Mitchell stood in front of the large viewing window that looked out over Luna Station's main docking bay. Ships from across the galaxy floated in the dark space beyond, their strange shapes and glowing lights telling stories of worlds he had never seen. Today was special. Today, the newest group of alien exchange students would begin their studies at the Terran Academy. Jake turned around to face the group of beings that had gathered in the orientation room. They were unlike anything most humans had ever imagined before first contact. The Zephyrians looked like living crystals that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. They moved slowly and carefully as if afraid their bodies might shatter. The Kelthans wore thick environmental suits filled with water, their large eyes visible through clear faceplates. Bubbles rose up through the water around their gills every few seconds. The Vortaxians looked like giant insects with too many arms and legs. They stayed close together in a tight group and made soft clicking sounds when they talked to each other. Dr. Lisa Harper walked into the room carrying a tablet and wearing her usual bright smile. She had taught xenobiology at the Academy for 12 years and loved working with students from other worlds. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard Academy uniform of dark blue pants and a light blue shirt. "Good morning, everyone," Lisa said, her voice cheerful and warm. "Welcome to your first day at the Terran Academy. I know you're all excited to learn about human culture and science." A Zephyrian student raised one of her crystal arms. Light danced across her surface as she moved. "Professor Harper, my name is Zixthala. We have read about the field trip in our welcome materials. We are confused about the location." "Oh, the Europa trip, Lisa's smile grew wider. "That's going to be wonderful. You'll get to see one of our deep ice mining operations up close. It's a great example of human engineering and problem solving." The alien students looked at each other with what humans would recognize as worry, though their faces showed it in different ways. The Zephyrians dimmed their internal lights. The Kelthans' gills moved faster, making more bubbles in their suits. The Vortaxians clicked more rapidly and pressed closer together. A Kelthan student spoke up, his voice coming through a speaker in his helmet. "Professor, we have studied your moon Europa. The surface temperature is negative 180 degrees in your Celsius scale. The atmospheric pressure would crush most species. There is deadly radiation from Jupiter. How do humans work in such conditions?" Lisa looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "Well, we wear protective gear, of course, standard thermal suits and breathing equipment, the same kind of thing we use for any cold weather work." The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Jake could see the alien students exchanging what he was sure were worried looks. Finally, a Vortaxian spoke, its voice a series of musical clicks that the translation device turned into words. "Professor Harper, what you describe would be certain death for our species, even with our most advanced protection systems. Are you certain this is meant to be an educational experience and not some form of trial or test?" Jake stepped forward. He was a tall man with gray hair and the kind of calm voice that came from years of military service. "I can assure you that this is a perfectly normal field trip. We take groups of students to Europa several times each academic year. The safety record is excellent." "Safety record?" Zixthala's crystal body flashed bright red. "Commander Mitchell, with respect, we have reviewed the environmental data. Your Europa station operates in conditions that would qualify as a Class A planetary disaster zone by Galactic Council standards." "Class A?" Lisa looked confused. "I'm not familiar with that term." A different Zephyrian student, this one with blue crystal formations, spoke up. "Class A means conditions so dangerous that no intelligent species should attempt to survive there, even temporarily. It is reserved for places like the surface of stars or the inside of black holes." The room fell silent again. Jake and Lisa looked at each other, then back at the alien students. The humans seemed completely calm, while the aliens appeared to be on the edge of panic. "Look," Jake said, sitting down in a chair to appear less threatening. "I understand that conditions on Europa might seem harsh compared to your homeworlds, but humans have been working there for over 50 years. We have excellent safety protocols and equipment. No student has ever been seriously injured on one of these trips." "No one has been seriously injured?" A Kelthan student's voice cracked through his speaker. "Commander, the radiation alone would kill any of our species within minutes of exposure, even with full environmental protection." Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing Europa and its orbital path around Jupiter. "The radiation levels are elevated, certainly, but nothing our standard shielding can't handle. We monitor exposure levels constantly and rotate work shifts to keep everyone safe." The Vortaxians began clicking frantically among themselves. Their group moved as one unit toward the back of the room, as far from the humans as they could get. "Professor," Zixthala said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what you consider standard shielding, we would consider military-grade protection suitable only for the most extreme emergency situations." Jake stood up and walked over to a wall display that showed the Academy's safety statistics. "These numbers speak for themselves. In the past decade, we've had 0 fatalities and only a handful of minor injuries during field trips. Our safety record is outstanding." "Minor injuries?" The blue Zephyrian student's body was now flashing rapid patterns of red and orange lights. "What do humans consider minor injuries?" Lisa thought for a moment. "Well, last year we had a student slip on some ice and sprain his ankle. The year before that, someone got a small cut on their hand from a piece of equipment. Nothing serious." The alien stared at her in complete disbelief. To them, any injury sustained in conditions that deadly was a miracle of survival. "I think," said Jake slowly, beginning to understand the problem, "we may have different definitions of what constitutes dangerous conditions." The Kelthan student who had spoken first moved closer to the front of his group. "Commander Mitchell, Dr. Harper, we must ask directly, is this field trip mandatory for our academic program?" "Not at all," Lisa said quickly. "Participation is completely voluntary. But I really think you're worrying too much. This will be an amazing learning experience." The alien students huddled together, their various forms of communication creating a strange symphony of clicks, bubbles, and flashing lights. After several minutes, Zixthala stepped forward to speak for the group. "We have decided to participate in this field trip, not because we believe it is safe, but because we wish to understand how humans think about danger and survival. We believe this experience will teach us something important about your species." Jake smiled and nodded. "I think you're right. You're going to learn things about humanity that you never expected." None of them realized just how true those words would prove to be. The transport ship New Horizon moved through space like a metal whale swimming through an ocean of stars. Captain Amy Rodriguez sat in the pilot's seat, her hands moving easily across the control panels. She had been flying ships for 20 years, and the route to Europa was as familiar to her as the walk from her bedroom to her kitchen. "Coming up on the asteroid field," Amy announced over the ship's communication system. "Everyone might want to take a look out the windows. It's quite a sight." The alien students pressed themselves against the viewing ports, their various forms of eyes wide with terror. Massive chunks of rock and metal drifted past the ship, some as large as buildings, others as small as cars. To the aliens, it looked like they were flying through a cosmic minefield where one wrong move would mean instant death. Danny Chen floated by in the zero gravity, a protein bar in one hand and a tablet in the other. He was a second-year engineering student with short, black hair and an easy smile. He moved through the weightless environment as naturally as most people walked on solid ground. "Pretty cool, right?" Danny said to a group of Zephyrian students who were clustered around one of the larger windows. "My brother Jake works out here mining asteroids. He says the trick is to read the orbital patterns and slip between the big ones." Zixthala's crystal body had turned a pale white color that Danny didn't know meant absolute terror in Zephyrian body language. "Your brother works in this death field regularly?" "Death field?" Danny laughed and took another bite of his protein bar. "It's really not that dangerous once you know what you're doing. Jake's been doing asteroid mining for 8 years now. Never had a serious accident." "Never had a serious accident?" A Kelthan student's voice bubbled through his water-filled helmet. "What do you consider a serious accident?" Danny thought for a moment while he chewed. "Well, there was that time. His suit got punctured by a piece of debris. But he just slapped some emergency tape on the hole and kept working until the end of his shift. The decompression wasn't too bad since it was just a small hole." The aliens stared at him in complete Silence. In their worlds, a punctured environmental suit in space was considered one of the worst ways to die. The fact that a human had simply put tape on the hole and continued working was beyond their understanding. Emergency tape? Zixthala whispered. Yeah, all our suits have quick patch kits, basically super strong tape that can seal small holes long enough to get you back to safety. Every space worker carries them. Danny spoke as if he were talking about something as common as a bandage. Captain Amy's voice came over the speakers. Again. Attention everyone, we're going to take a shortcut through the Jovian radiation belt. This will save us about 3 hours of travel time, so we'll arrive at Europa ahead of schedule. The alien students froze. The Jovian radiation belt was one of the most deadly regions of space in the solar system. Most galactic species would only travel through it in heavily shielded military vessels, and even then only in cases of extreme emergency. Captain Rodriguez called out a Vortaxian student, its voice tight with panic. Are you certain this is safe? Our home-world databases list the Jovian radiation belt as a no-travel zone for all civilian vessels. Amy's laugh came through the speakers. Oh, it's perfectly safe with proper shielding. We run commercial flights through here all the time. The radiation levels are elevated, but nothing our hull plating can't handle. 15 minutes later, the ship's radiation alarms began to sound. Loud beeping filled the corridors, and red warning lights flashed on every wall. The alien students prepared for death. Some began recording final messages to their families. Others started whatever passed for prayer in their cultures. The human crew responded to the alarms by turning down the volume. Sorry about the noise. Amy's voice came over the speakers, calm and relaxed. The automated systems always get excited when we pass through this region. Nothing to worry about. Dr. Harper's voice joined the captain's announcement. Actually, this is a perfect teaching opportunity. The radiation levels we're experiencing right now are similar to what our homeworld Earth deals with naturally. Our planet's magnetic field and atmosphere protect us from cosmic radiation that would be lethal to most other species. Danny Chen had finished his protein bar and was now doing slow flips in the zero gravity, apparently enjoying himself. He noticed the terrified aliens and floated over to them. Dr. Harper's right, he said. Earth is actually pretty harsh compared to most worlds. We have natural radiation, violent weather, dangerous animals, unstable geology. Most humans don't think about it because we grew up with it. Dangerous animals? A blue Zephyrian student managed to ask. Oh yeah. Sharks, bears, lions, snakes, spiders, jellyfish. Thousands of species that can kill you if you're not careful. Plus diseases, parasites, poisonous plants. Earth is basically trying to kill everything that lives on it all the time. The ship shook slightly as it passed through a particularly dense region of Jupiter's radiation field. The human crew didn't even seem to notice, but the alien students gripped whatever solid objects they could find. My little sister went camping last month, Danny continued, apparently unaware of the aliens' terror. She hiked for 3 days through wilderness filled with predators, slept outside in below freezing temperatures, and drank water straight from a stream. She had a great time. Your sister voluntarily entered an environment filled with predators? Zixthala asked. Sure. It's called backpacking. Millions of humans do it for fun. Fresh air, beautiful scenery, physical challenge. It's a popular hobby. Kelthan's student spoke up, his voice shaking. On our world, entering predator territory without full military escort would be considered suicide. Really? Danny looked genuinely interested. What kind of predators do you have? Small fish that travel in groups. They are not much larger than your hand, but they have sharp teeth. We consider them extremely dangerous. Danny nodded politely, though he was thinking that what the Kelthans considered extremely dangerous sounded like something human children would catch with fishing nets for fun. The radiation alarms had been beeping steadily for over an hour now. The alien students had moved past terror and into a state of numb acceptance of their approaching deaths. They huddled together in the center of the passenger area, as far from the ship's hull as possible. Captain Amy made another announcement. We're coming out of the radiation belt now. Should be smooth flying from here to Europa. Estimated arrival time is 1400 hours station time. As the alarms finally stopped and the red warning lights turned off, the alien students slowly began to believe they might actually survive. They had just traveled through one of the most dangerous regions of space, and the humans had treated it like a routine detour. Dr. Harper floated into the passenger area, moving through zero gravity with the same casual ease as Danny. She carried a tablet and wore the same cheerful smile she always had. "I hope everyone enjoyed the journey," she said. "We're making excellent time. You'll be interested to know that the radiation exposure we just experienced was actually lower than what humans receive during a typical commercial flight on Earth." "Lower?" A Vortaxian student clicked in disbelief. "Oh yes. Earth's atmosphere is much thinner at high altitudes, so passengers on aircraft are exposed to more cosmic radiation than we just experienced. Of course, the exposure time is much shorter for flights, so the total dose is similar." Danny Chen had found a window and was looking out at Jupiter, which now filled most of their view. The giant planet's swirling clouds and massive storms were clearly visible. "Look at that storm," he said to the aliens near the window. "That's the Great Red Spot. It's been raging for over 400 years. The winds in that storm would tear apart anything humans have ever built. But it's beautiful, isn't it?" The alien students looked at the storm that could destroy entire worlds and wondered what kind of planet could produce a species that found such destruction beautiful. They were beginning to understand that humans had a very different relationship with danger than any other species they had ever encountered. As Europa grew larger in their view, the alien students prepared themselves for whatever impossible things the humans would show them next. The docking bay of Europa Research Station was carved directly into the ice crust of Jupiter's moon. As the new horizon settled onto the landing platform, the alien students could see through the viewing ports that they were surrounded by walls of solid ice that stretched up into darkness. Massive heating units glowed red along the walls, working constantly to keep the bay from freezing solid. Chief Operations Officer Nick Santos was waiting for them at the airlock. He was a tall man, with brown skin and black hair that was starting to turn gray at the edges. What immediately caught everyone's attention was his left arm, which was clearly mechanical. The metal and plastic prosthetic moved with smooth precision as he gestured for the group to follow him. "Welcome to Europa Station," Nick said, his voice warm and friendly. "I hope you had a good flight. We're excited to show you around our facility." Zixthala's crystal body flickered with nervous light patterns. "Mr. Santos, if we may ask, what happened to your arm?" Nick looked down at his prosthetic as if he had forgotten it was there. "Oh, this? Minor drilling accident about 3 years ago. Got caught between a thermal bore and an ice wall during a routine maintenance check. The replacement actually works better than the original, though. Doesn't get cold, never gets tired, and the built-in tools are really handy." The alien students stared at him in horror. To them, losing a limb in an industrial accident was a life-changing tragedy. To Nick, it seemed like a minor inconvenience that had actually improved his situation. "You consider losing an arm to be minor?" a Kelthan student asked, bubbles rising rapidly through his helmet. "Well, it wasn't ideal," Nick admitted. "But I was back to work in 6 weeks, and like I said, the prosthetic has some advantages. Plus, the medical team here did a great job with the surgery. Dr. Williams is one of the best trauma surgeons in the system." "You have a trauma surgeon stationed here permanently?" a Vortaxian clicked. "Two, actually, Dr. Williams and Dr. Price, along with a full medical team. When you're working in conditions like this, accidents happen. Better to be prepared." Nick led them through corridors that had been carved out of solid ice and lined with metal plating. The walls were thick, but the alien students could still hear the ice creaking and groaning under enormous pressure. Water occasionally dripped from joints in the ceiling, freezing into ice crystals before it hit the floor. "The station is built right into Europa's ice crust," Nick explained as they walked. "We're about 2 kilometers down from the surface, with the ocean another 15 kilometers below us. The thermal generators keep our living spaces comfortable, and the ice provides natural radiation shielding." "Natural radiation shielding?" Zixthala's light patterns turned worried shades of yellow. "From Jupiter's radiation belt. Without the ice above us, the radiation levels would be lethal even with standard protective equipment. The ice absorbs most of it, so we only get a mild dose down here." The alien students exchanged looks of panic. What Nick called a mild dose would probably kill most of their species within hours. They entered a large common area where human workers were eating lunch and talking casually. The room had large windows that looked out into the depths of Europa's ice, where strange lights glowed in the distance. Katie Morrison, a geology student with red hair and freckles, waved them over to her table. "Hi, everyone. I'm Katie. I've been working here for 6 months as part of my graduate research. You're going to love seeing the drilling operation this afternoon." 6 months? A blue Zephyrian student asked. "You have been living in these conditions for 6 months?" "Yeah, it's been amazing. The work is challenging, and the research opportunities are incredible. Plus, the ice formations down here are unlike anything we see on Earth." A Kelthan worker at the next table overheard the conversation and joined in. Katie's being modest. She discovered 3 new types of ice crystal formations last month. Her work is going to change how we think about geological processes in extreme cold environments. "Extreme cold?" Katie laughed. "It's not that bad once you get used to it. The thermal suits keep you plenty warm during surface work." Nick led them to another window, this one looking down toward the deeper levels of the station. Far below, they could see lights moving in the darkness and the glow of massive machinery. "That's the main drilling platform," he explained. "We're currently boring down toward the ocean level. The goal is to eventually establish direct access to Europa's subsurface sea." "You're drilling toward an ocean that's under 15 kilometers of ice?" A Vortaxian student clicked in amazement. "That's the plan. The ocean down there probably contains more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. If there's life in the solar system outside Earth, that's where we're most likely to find it." During lunch, the alien students listened to human workers discuss their jobs with casual indifference to dangers that would terrify most species. They talked about equipment failures in deadly cold, emergency repairs during radiation storms, and close calls with unstable ice formations as if they were discussing the weather. "Last week we had a thermal generator fail in Sector 7, one worker said between bites of his sandwich. "Had to work in -160 temperatures for 4 hours while we got the backup system online." "That's nothing," another replied. "Remember when the ice shifted in Sector 12 and we had to evacuate through the emergency tunnels? That was exciting." The alien students realized that what humans considered exciting would be classified as a disaster, requiring immediate evacuation by any other species. After lunch, Nick gathered the group for their tour of the surface facilities. "Everyone will need to suit up in full environmental gear. Surface temperature today is -178 degrees Celsius, with moderate radiation levels from Jupiter." The alien students were given environmental suits that looked like medieval armor, compared to the sleek gear the humans wore. Their suits had triple-layer thermal protection, redundant life support systems, and radiation shielding thick enough to stop bullets. The human suits looked thin and lightweight in comparison. "Are you certain these suits are adequate?" Zixthala asked, her voice muffled by the thick helmet. Katie Morrison was putting on her human suit, which looked impossibly thin compared to the alien gear. "Oh sure, these are heavy-duty models. We use these for extended surface work. The regular suits are lighter, but Dr. Harper thought you might be more comfortable with the extra protection." The airlock cycle took 15 minutes as the system slowly adjusted pressure and temperature. When the outer door finally opened, the alien students got their first look at Europa's surface. The landscape was a nightmare of cracked ice and radiation-scorched rock under a black sky filled with stars. Jupiter hung overhead like a giant eye, its radiation belts visible as sheets of deadly light. Steam rose from thermal vents scattered across the surface, and in the distance, they could see the lights of the drilling platform. Nick Santos stepped out onto the surface as casually as if he were walking into a garden. "Beautiful day," he said. "Clear skies and only moderate radiation. Perfect weather for a tour." The alien students followed, certain they were walking into their own deaths. They had traveled across space to learn about human education, and instead they were discovering that humans casually lived and worked in conditions that would kill most species in minutes. As they walked toward the drilling platform, Katie Morrison pointed out various geological features with the enthusiasm of someone showing off their favorite vacation spot. She had no idea that her guests were experiencing the most terrifying day of their lives. "Over there you can see where we've been testing new thermal extraction techniques," she said, pointing to an area where superheated steam shot up from the ice. The temperature differential creates some really interesting crystal formations. The alien students looked at the steam vents that Katie found interesting and wondered what kind of world could produce a species that found beauty in such deadly extremes. The drilling platform rose from Europa's ice surface like a metal mountain. Massive thermal units glowed bright orange against the black sky, melting through ice that had been frozen solid for millions of years. The alien students could feel the vibration through their thick boots as enormous machines worked far below the surface. Carl Johnson was the equipment operator in charge of the platform. He was a short, thick man with graying hair and hands that showed the scars of years, working with heavy machinery. He greeted the tour group with a smile and a wave of his heavily gloved hand. "Welcome to the deep drilling site," Carl said, his voice coming through their helmet communicators. "We're currently at depth level 47, about 8 kilometers down, making good progress toward the ocean layer." The alien students looked around the platform with growing horror. Massive pieces of equipment sat exposed to the deadly cold and radiation. Ice chunks the size of cars were scattered around the work area, apparently blasted up from the drilling site below. Steam vented from dozens of places, creating an atmosphere that looked like the inside of a volcano. "The drilling process creates a lot of heat," Katie Morrison explained, pointing to the steam vents. "We have to constantly manage the thermal balance to keep the borehole from collapsing or expanding too quickly." Halfway through Carl's explanation of the drilling process, Europa's surface began to shake. At first it was just a minor tremor, but within seconds it had grown into a full earthquake. Ice cracked and split around them, and several pieces of equipment shifted dangerously. "Icequake," Carl said calmly, as if he were commenting on a light rain. "Pretty good-sized one, probably triggered by our drilling hitting a stress point in the ice." The shaking continued for nearly 2 full minutes. Cracks opened in the ice around the platform, some of them deep enough that the bottom disappeared into darkness. The alien students huddled together, certain that the surface was about to collapse under their feet. When the shaking finally stopped, Carl walked over to check on a piece of drilling equipment that had shifted position during the quake. "Looks like the thermal bore assembly moved about 3 meters. We'll need to reset the positioning system." Nick Santos was already on his radio, calling back to the main station. "Europa Control, this is Surface Team 1. We've had a magnitude 6 ice quake at the drilling site. Equipment is stable, no personnel injuries. We'll continue with the scheduled operations." The response came back immediately. "Copy that, Surface Team 1. Geological monitoring shows the ice is stable. Cleared to continue operations." The alien students could not believe what they were hearing. What they had just experienced was a geological disaster that would have triggered planet-wide emergency protocols on their home worlds. The humans were treating it like a minor delay in their work schedule. Magnitude 6? Zixthala's crystal body was flashing rapid patterns of red and white light. That earthquake would have destroyed most of our cities. "Different planetary conditions," Katie explained. "Europa's ice crust is constantly shifting and cracking. The moon is stretched and compressed by Jupiter's gravity, so seismic activity is normal here. We build everything to handle the movement." As if to prove her point, the platform's support legs automatically adjusted their position, compensating for the new surface contours created by the earthquake. The machinery kept running without interruption. Carl had finished checking the equipment and was preparing to restart the drilling process when another problem occurred. A large piece of bore assembly broke free from its mounting and fell into one of the deep cracks created by the earthquake. The equipment disappeared into the darkness with a series of echoing crashes. "Well, that's not ideal," Carl said, looking down into the crack. "That's our primary thermal control unit. We'll need to retrieve it, or the whole operation will have to shut down." The alien students expected this to be the end of the surface tour. Surely losing critical equipment in a bottomless ice chasm would force the humans to retreat to safety and call for rescue equipment. Instead, Ben Clark stepped forward and began putting on additional climbing gear. Ben was a maintenance technician, a young man with black hair and the kind of quiet confidence that came from years of solving dangerous problems. "I'll go get it," Ben said, attaching ropes and lights to his environmental suit. "Looks like it fell about 40 meters down. Should be able to reach it." "Ben, are you insane?" A Vortaxian student clicked frantically. "That crevasse could collapse at any moment. You'll be crushed or frozen to death." Ben looked genuinely confused by the concern. "The ice is stable now, that the stress has been relieved by the quake. Besides, we need that equipment to continue operations. It'll take weeks to get a replacement sent from Earth." Nick Santos was already helping Ben attach the climbing ropes to anchor points on the platform. "Standard procedure," he explained to the horrified aliens. "We lose equipment in cracks and crevasses all the time. Retrieval operations are part of the job." Ben rappelled down into the crack as casually as someone taking an elevator to a lower floor. His helmet lights created moving patterns on the ice walls as he descended into the darkness. The alien students watched through their helmet displays as his suit camera showed the narrow passage and jagged ice formations that could cut through even the thickest environmental protection. "Coming up on the equipment now." Ben's voice came through their communicators. "Looks like it's wedged between two ice formations. Might take a few minutes to work it loose." For 20 minutes, the alien students watched Ben work in conditions that would be considered a death trap by any other species. The temperature in the crack was even colder than the surface. The ice walls pressed in from all sides, and the risk of collapse was constant. Finally, Ben's voice came through with satisfaction. "Got it. The thermal control unit is damaged but repairable, coming back up now." As Ben climbed back to the surface with the retrieved equipment, Carl discovered that his own environmental suit had been damaged during the earthquake. Ice shards had punctured the thermal regulation system, and his suit was slowly losing heat in the deadly cold. "Looks like I've got a malfunction," Carl said, examining the damage. "Thermal system is failing." The alien students prepared for another emergency evacuation. Surely a failing life support system would force the humans to abandon the surface immediately. Instead, Carl opened an equipment kit and began making field repairs to his suit. Using spare parts, tools, and what appeared to be industrial tape, he jury-rigged a temporary fix for the thermal system. "That should hold for another few hours," Carl said, sealing the last of the repairs. "Long enough to finish the day's operations." Ben emerged from the crevasse with the rescued equipment, his suit covered in ice crystals but apparently undamaged. He had successfully completed what any other species would consider a suicide mission, and he looked no more concerned than someone who had just fixed a leaky pipe. "Equipment looks good," Ben reported. "Should be back online in 30 minutes, once I make some adjustments." As the humans continued their work in conditions that should have killed them all several times over, the alien students finally began to understand something important about humanity. These were not reckless people, ignoring danger. These were members of a species that had evolved on a world so hostile that what others considered impossible survival scenarios were just Tuesday afternoon for humans. The earthquake, the equipment failure, the damaged life support system, the rescue mission into a potentially deadly ice crack, all of it was just another day at work for humans. They had developed solutions, procedures, and technology to handle these situations because they faced similar challenges every day of their lives. As Jupiter's radiation bathed the surface in deadly energy and the temperature tried to freeze their equipment solid, the humans continued their mission with the calm efficiency of people who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to survive in impossible conditions. The alien students watched and learned that safety protocols were not something humans rejected out of ignorance. They rejected protocols that were designed for species that had never learned to thrive in the face of constant mortal danger. Back inside Europa Research Station, the alien students sat in the main conference room while their environmental suits went through decontamination cycles. Their various species showed stress in different ways. The Zephyrians had dimmed to barely visible light levels. The Kelthans' gills moved rapidly in their water-filled helmets. The Vortaxians huddled together, clicking softly in what sounded like prayers or laments. Dr. Lisa Harper entered the room carrying a tablet and wearing the same cheerful expression she always had. She seemed completely unaware that her students had just survived what they considered the most terrifying experience of their lives. I hope everyone enjoyed the surface tour, Lisa said, settling into her chair. I thought this would be a good time to discuss what you observed and answer any questions you might have about human operations here. Zixthala was the first to speak, her crystal voice barely audible. Dr. Harper, we must ask directly. Is your homeworld Earth considered a dangerous planet by human standards? Lisa looked surprised by the question. Dangerous? Not particularly. Earth has its challenges, of course, but humans have been successfully living there for hundreds of thousands of years. We've adapted quite well to the conditions. What kind of challenges? A Kelthan student asked. Well, let's see. Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing Earth from space. We have variable weather patterns that can be quite severe. Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, droughts, floods. Seismic activity from tectonic plate movement causes earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The atmosphere has fairly high oxygen levels, which can be corrosive over time. She zoomed in to show different regions of the planet. Then there's the biological diversity. Earth has millions of species, many of them predatory. Large carnivores, venomous creatures, parasites, disease organisms. The oceans contain species that can kill humans in minutes. The alien students listened with growing amazement. What Lisa was describing so casually sounded like a death world beyond their worst nightmares. Predatory species? A blue Zephyrian student asked. Oh yes, thousands of them. Bears, lions, tigers, wolves, sharks, crocodiles, snakes, spiders. Many human settlements are built right in the middle of territories occupied by dangerous animals. Danny, Chen, the engineering student, had joined them for the debriefing session. My hometown in Colorado has problems with mountain lions and bears getting into people's yards, he said. Every few months someone spots a bear going through their garbage, or a lion stalking their pets. And humans continue to live in such places? A Vortaxian clicked in disbelief. Sure, Danny replied. You just have to be careful. Don't leave food outside, keep your pets indoors at night, make noise when you're hiking so you don't surprise anything. Basic common sense. Lisa continued her presentation. Earth's gravity is quite strong compared to most inhabited worlds. The atmospheric pressure at sea level would crush some species. Solar radiation levels require protective measures for extended exposure. She pulled up a chart showing various statistics. Human children are taught from an early age to recognize and avoid dangerous situations, swimming in bodies of water that contain predators, hiking through territories with large carnivores dealing with extreme weather conditions. What other species might consider advanced survival training we call childhood education. Alex Turner, a graduate student who had been working at the station for 2 years, joined the discussion. Alex was a tall woman with brown hair and the kind of calm demeanor that came from years of working in extreme environments. The interesting thing, Alex said, is that most humans don't think of Earth as particularly dangerous because we evolved there. Our ancestors survived by adapting to threats that would kill most other species instantly. She activated another display showing human evolutionary history. Early humans lived alongside predators that could tear them apart in seconds. They survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and natural disasters that destroyed entire ecosystems. The ones who lived long enough to reproduce were the ones who could think quickly, adapt to changing conditions, and find solutions to impossible problems. Find solutions to impossible problems, Zixthala repeated slowly. Is that why humans seem so casual about conditions that would kill our species? Partly, Lisa answered. But it's also because we've developed technology and procedures to manage extreme conditions. What looks impossible to you is just an engineering problem to us. Danny pulled up his personal tablet and showed them pictures from his childhood. This is me when I was 8 years old, camping with my family in Yellowstone National Park. We slept in tents surrounded by bears, wolves, and other predators, cooked our food over open fires, drank water from streams, hiked for days through wilderness. The images showed a small human child, laughing and playing in an environment that the alien students recognized as certain death for anyone from their species. Your parents allowed you to enter such dangerous conditions as a child? A Kelthan student asked. Encouraged it, actually. They wanted me and my sister to learn outdoor skills, develop self-reliance, Appreciate nature. Millions of human families do the same thing every year. Alex brought up another display, this one showing human recreational activities. Humans engage in what we call extreme sports for entertainment. Skydiving, jumping from aircraft thousands of meters above the ground with only fabric parachutes. Mountain climbing, scaling vertical rock faces using ropes and metal tools. Deep sea diving, descending into ocean depths where pressure would crush most species. For entertainment? A Vortaxian worker clicked frantically. Yes, humans seek out dangerous activities because they find them exciting and challenging. We have entire industries built around helping people experience controlled danger safely. Lisa stood up and walked to the large window overlooking Europa's ice plains. The truth is, what you've experienced here today is just normal human life. We don't reject safety protocols because we're reckless. We reject protocols that would prevent us from accomplishing necessary goals. She turned back to face the alien. Students, your species developed on worlds where extreme caution was necessary for survival. Ours developed on a world where excessive caution meant death by starvation, exposure, or predation. We learned that perfect safety is an illusion, and that progress requires accepting calculated risks. Commander Jake Mitchell entered the room, having just returned from his own tour of the facility. How did everyone enjoy their visit to our little outpost? Commander, Zixthala said, we have learned something important about humanity today. You do not reject safety protocols out of ignorance or arrogance. You reject them because your entire species has a fundamentally different relationship with danger than any other known intelligent life. Jake nodded slowly. That's probably accurate. Humans tend to see obstacles as problems to be solved rather than barriers to be avoided. It comes from growing up on a world that's constantly trying to kill everything that lives on it. Constantly trying to kill everything? A blue Zephyrian student asked. Earth is what galactic xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world, Lisa explained. The highest danger classification for any planet known to support complex life. Most species wouldn't survive there for minutes without life support systems. The alien students sat in stunned silence as the full implications of what they had learned sank in. Humans weren't unusually brave or reckless. They were the product of evolutionary pressure from the most dangerous planet in known space. What seemed like impossible courage to other species was simply normal human behavior. Alex pulled up one final display, showing Earth's position among known inhabited worlds in terms of environmental hostility. This is why humans were the first species to achieve faster than light travel, establish colonies on hostile worlds, and develop the technology to work in extreme environments like Europa. Other species spent thousands of years developing safety protocols and risk management procedures, Jake added. Humans spent the same time learning to survive in conditions where those protocols would be useless. As the alien students prepared to return to their transport ship, they carried with them a new understanding of humanity. They had come to learn about human education and had instead discovered why humans were simultaneously feared and respected throughout the galaxy. Zixthala made a final entry in her personal log before departing Europa Station. Today I learned why humans are the only known species to look at the vast dangers of space and see opportunities rather than threats. They do not seek danger, but they refuse to let danger prevent them from reaching toward the impossible. We came here thinking humans rejected safety protocols out of recklessness. Instead, we learned that they reject the idea that safety and progress are mutually exclusive. In a universe full of species that chose caution over advancement, humans chose to advance despite the dangers. No other species would attempt to live and work in the conditions we experience today. But for humans, this is just another day. At the office, they have turned survival into a science and made the impossible seem routine. I understand now why human colonies exist on worlds where no other species dares to go, and why human ships travel through regions of space that others consider forbidden. They are not braver than other species. They simply have a different definition of what constitutes acceptable RA.